name's Tom. I created Knit Sips on Instagram and my hobby is knitting. This story is kind of my experience with mental health and my experience with stress and anxiety. When I grew up, it wasn't really talked about. I didn't really know anything about stress. I think stress was a common thing, like you could hear people getting stressed, but anxiety wasn't really a word that was used when I was growing up. We just kind of had the attitude of you just kind of pick yourself up and you get on with stuff. Yeah, I didn't really know about anxiety when I was younger. It wasn't really until I was in my kind of mid-20s where I was working in a cafe. I was a manager and the owner decided that they wanted to sell the business at some point. They kind of wanted to let the lease run out for like the next 2.5 years, and in that 2.5 years I was going to learn and train, and I was eventually going to be taking the cafe on and having it as my own and starting a new lease. Some events happened and the owner decided that they wanted to get rid of the business a little bit quicker. Looking back on it, I think they realised the way the town was going, because it was in a small town called Rugby, and a lot of the trade was moving out of town into this big kind of retail park. So rather than having about 2.5 years to learn more about the actual business side of things, because I knew how to run the business of making food, making coffee and managing the staff, but the actual having the business, I didn't really know much about the finances or anything like that. So I ended up having about 3 months to get ready, which is not enough time, and they kind of supported me for a little bit but then kind of disappeared, and kind of stopped. The support kind of dropped off and I was kind of left on my own, and I ran it for about 2.5 years. I ran it pretty much until the lease was running out, and it was okay at the beginning, but then I realised quite quickly that's the reason why she wanted to sell the business, was the trade was moving out of the city centre over to the retail park, so the business was struggling. I ended up accumulating quite a bit of debt. All of that stress kind of built up, and around that kind of time is when I had my first panic attack. Just the whole financial stress and the potential of people losing their jobs and not succeeding with the cafe, it kind of really got to me, and that's when I learned a lot more about mental health and stress. Luckily I had really good support with my girlfriend, who has dealt with her own stress in her life, and my mum as well was really helpful, and my family were very supportive. And I went to the GP and they suggested a stress management course, which didn't do too much. I did go to all of the sessions. They tried to give you tips on how to deal with stress, but I knew that, I don't know, it didn't really work as well for me as it did maybe for other people. That's kind of how I learned about my stress and my mental health. And looking back now, I realise that I can be quite an anxious person. I'm not a massive fan of crowds. I don't think I realised I do like a tap thing when I used to go to the supermarkets, and it's only really since I went through all of this I realised that actually I do have like little triggers and stuff of trying to deal with my anxiety that I just didn't really notice when I was younger because it wasn't really talked about. I really enjoy knitting. It's something I started when the cafe was ending and I didn't have a lot of work going on, because I went from working 6 to 7 days a week trying to get this cafe working to not really working for a couple of weeks. I needed something to try and help kind of turn my brain off for a moment. That was all I was thinking about, was the money and the stress of people losing their jobs and me not having a job, and not really knowing what I was going to do. And I think I just ended up, we went to the shops, I think we saw like a knitting kit and I was like, oh, maybe I'll have a go at that, and looked into it a little bit more and bought some wool and bought some needles and ended up having a go, and knitted a scarf, and then I kind of wanted to progress quite quickly because I quite like being creative, and crafting is quite natural, so I moved on to hats pretty quickly, and just that's how it kind of started. And it was a really good way of turning my brain off for a moment and focusing on something else. I mean, I tried meditating and I tried yoga, and those didn't really work for me. Like I don't know, I just didn't feel flexible, and I was meditating, I couldn't get out of my head. I felt like it was just making it noisier. But crafting was a way of me being able to focus on one thing. Yeah, I now notice if I've got like a really busy work week and I'm not able to knit, I can feel my kind of stress levels kind of like raise a little bit, which is why I do try and do a couple of rows every day, even if it's just 10 minutes. I feel like it's just a really good, almost like meditative kind of practice. I was quite fortunate that I had my family and my girlfriend to talk to. I think it helped quite a lot being able to voice my concerns and having someone else's perspective, because I think we're all quite good at catastrophizing things, and if we have something going on in our head, it going around and thinking of every like scenario that it could be in, quite often the worst case creeps up. So I think having a good community around you, being able to talk to someone, whether it's someone that you know who's like your partner or your family, but I also know that the knitting and the crafting community is really good, and if you ever needed to talk to someone, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who would be happy to talk and help you voice your concerns and your anxieties out. And then also the next thing I would say is to find your hobby. For me it was knitting, but then I think I also find that kind of peace when I'm cooking as well, because I've been cooking for a long time, and I think I still get that same kind of level of release just from cooking as well. So finding your hobby is important, and that could be a craft, it could be running, some kind of form of exercise. But yeah, I mean, and there's professionals out there. Hope you all enjoy this video, and I would love to hear your story of your experience with mental health and your crafting story as well. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video.